You know what time it is. It's time for the February wrap-up. This month I actually managed to read another 10 books, so that makes a total of 20 books for 2014 so far, which is pretty good for me. Some of them weren't very long, so don't think that I read super quickly or anything. The first book I read was The Little Prince, which is a very small, fast book, and I really enjoyed this. I thought it was just really sweet and adorable and really surreal and weird, but still really great. I give it 5 out of 5 stars. I really loved how the drawings within the book were incorporated into the actual story. The next book I read was Josie Under Fire. This is another book in the historical house series, and this one was set during the Second World War in London, so it was really interesting to see what it was like living during that time, and I just really enjoyed this book, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next one was also a short one, and that was Terra Tempo. This is a graphic novel all about the Ice Age floods that happened in the Pacific Northwest, which is the area that I live, so it was really interesting to see what happened back then. It's basically about a group of kids who time travel back into the Ice Age and see it happening firsthand. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars. I really enjoyed it, and I thought the artwork was beautiful as well. The next book I read was The Elements of Eloquence by Mark Forsyth. This is his next book after the Horologicon, which I have also read, and it's just all about the English language and different phrases and tricks people like Shakespeare and other writers use to make things sound good. And even though I'm not a writer myself, I thought it was really interesting, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I listened to was the audiobook of The Fault in Our Stars. This was the second audiobook that I've ever listened to, and actually the first one I've ever completed, so it went much better than my experience listening to A Dance with Dragons, which didn't go so well. And I don't know if that's because I've read the book before or it's read by John Green and I'm just so familiar with his voice, but I really enjoyed listening to this book. And because I didn't have to use my eyes or my hands to read a physical book, I was much more free to crying during the sad parts. And of course this book is a 5-star book for me. The next book I read was a little bit of a bigger book, but a children's book, so it did go faster, and that is Wildwood Imperium by Colin Malloy, illustrated by Carson Ellis. And you guys must know these books if you've watched my videos before, because I talk about them a lot. This is one of my favorite series, and this book wraps up the story that starts in the first book. This is the 3rd book in the Wildwood Chronicles, and I just really loved it. It was so adventurous and fun and exciting and sweet and just really cool and imaginative, and I can't wait to see what Colin Malloy does next. I gave it 5 out of 5 stars, of course. The next book I read was Shiver by Maggie Stiefvater. And I did enjoy this book, but it was kind of just a basic teenage paranormal romance with werewolves, and there wasn't much else to it. And I don't particularly feel like continuing on with the series, but if you're curious in the series and you haven't read Shiver, it does work as a standalone book if you just want to try it out. I gave Shiver 3 out of 5 stars. Inspired by Terra Tempo, I decided to pick up Bretz's Flood, which tells the true story of the geologist who discovered the evidence of all of these floods back around the 19-somethings. And even though I don't read a lot of nonfiction like this, it was still really interesting and even funny during certain moments. I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. The next book I read was A Tree Grows in Brooklyn by Betty Smith, and I absolutely loved this book. I came to really enjoy the characters and the setting and the detail that went into it, and even though it's not really an epic adventurous novel or anything, it's still just so enjoyable and written so well. This is definitely a new favorite. I will link to Leslie of Words of a Reader's review of this book because she basically says everything that I could. I of course gave it 5 out of 5 stars. And the 10th and last book that I read in February was War Dances by Sherman Alexie. This is another collection of short stories of his, and I think it is actually one of his best, and I gave it 4 out of 5 stars. But maybe more like a 4.5. And actually, funny story, someone came into where I work and saw that I was reading one of his books and said, "Hey, Sherman Alexie, he's a good friend of mine." So that was kind of cool. I've actually started reading Blasphemy, which is one of his newest ones, and it is going very quickly. I read about 95% of it in one day because a lot of the stories are ones that are in older books. So I've just been skipping past those. But as for the ones that I haven't read before, I am enjoying it, and I'm sure I will finish it this weekend. I'm also reading The Fires of Heaven, the 5th book in the Wheel of Time series. I am 200 pages in right now and am definitely enjoying it. I keep thinking about it while I'm at work and wanting to continue reading it and see what happens next, though it is definitely going to take me a while. And I'm also currently reading Ender's Game by Orson Scott Card. I'm reading this as an ebook on my lunch breaks, and so it is taking a while, but it is really interesting so far. As for what I want to read next, after I finish the ones that I'm reading right now, I think I will actually start on my collection of unread Dave Eggers books. So let me know how your month for reading went in February, what you plan to read next, and if you've read any of the ones that I have this month. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you later.